Well, our battery cut out yesterday, and we decided we actually need to talk a little more about this book because we thought of a few other things that we failed to mention. So, yesterday we were talking about, well, I mentioned Vimy. It's a trail in Waterton, and how it's not mentioned in this book. And there's very little from Waterton that's actually mentioned in this book for waterfalls, whereas as far as I'm concerned, Waterton is the waterfall park to go to. And they,
aside from Yoho, yeah.
Well, Yoho, there's one trail in particular that's really
But the thing about Yoho is it's on the Trans-Canada. It's not quite
so
like
busy.
Banff. It's quite busy.
It's
you got
incredibly
tour
busy.
buses and stuff like that. Well, it's not like Banff, but it's bad. It is bad. It's not as close to Calgary. It might be worse than Jasper, which isn't. It's close to Edmonton, but not that close. It's annoying, tour buses and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Hard to find parking, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Waterton, we don't really go down on the weekend, but I've never had trouble parking in Waterton. Well, of course, I get there pretty early for the...
I mean, there's some places in Waterton that are annoying for me to be, like Red Rock Canyon. It's always crazy. But you have to pass through there. You park, you pass through, you come back. So you only really have to deal with the crowds for a very short time.
I hate to think what it's like at peak time, because we get there early, maybe about 8 o'clock in the morning.
And so, like,
sometimes
when we go, we'll go. We like to do the Blackiston Creek Trail, which is not mentioned in here for waterfalls. But trust me, it's waterfalls.
They
so
do mention
all the
Blackiston
way.
Falls, but it's kind of like waterfall. There might be a half dozen waterfalls.
Many.
They're pretty small, but they're pretty impressive.
Yeah. So we like to go. We call it the Great Circle route, and we like to go up from Red Rock Canyon to Blackiston Falls, up Blackiston Creek, over Tamarack Trail to Twin Lakes, and then down Snowshoe Trail and back to Red Rock Canyon. It's one of our, I'd say, 2 favorite hikes. Would you say Sofa Mountain's the other one?
It's very nice.
It's a very nice hike.
It's I like different hikes. Carthew Alderson's awesome.
Oh yeah, it's awesome. Okay, so one of the top 3.
I think it's the best one actually.
Yeah, Carthew is.
I mean, it's got
wasn't even thinking
waterfalls. There are a couple of
it's
very
awesome.
impressive waterfalls.
And well, we did do Carthew last fall, and James was a bit disappointed because
with the waterfalls.
The waterfalls weren't going.
I was having trouble with my balance, so going up the switchbacks to the summit.
But he was much more impressed when we did it this year because the waterfalls.
The waterfalls was there, and it was. There wasn't any point where I was scared. I was able to do the high point, I think it's called, by Nagara, off of the Cove. So at the summit. So it was a very good experience. It was a rewarding experience last year, but it was even better this year.
And what I should say about the Great Circle route that we do is it is best to go early in the morning. You go to Blackiston Falls. There's nobody there yet. So if you leave it, if you're there at 7 a.m. Going to Blackiston Falls, you get to see it alone. Usually. And then you head up that way along Blackiston Creek, because then the whole way you're looking at the falls all the way along. You're facing into them. So you're watching all the falls along the creek, which is fantastic. So if you do it the other way, well then, and I've seen a lot of people coming back, well, I mean, not that many, but sometimes we cross paths with people, and when we do cross paths with them, they tend to be heading this way. Oh, a little nuthatch. Went down that way. Anyway, we'll see it again.
Yeah.
So, I wouldn't recommend going with the fall, the direction that the water goes, because then you're not seeing it. You're not seeing it fall.
Well, that's another thing.
Yeah.
I like getting it done in the morning too because there's so little coverage. It's all been burned
Yeah.
all the way up. Whereas you do get some
Yeah,
coverage
you don't want it to be hot
coming the
going.
other
Yeah,
side
exactly.
in the afternoon.
Yeah.
So it's even where it's been burned along Snowshoe Trail, there are places where the trees survive a little bit.
Yeah.
So there just is more coverage the other way. So it's a highly recommended falls. I recommend people get out, and yeah, it's 25 clicks or so, but don't do that right at the beginning. Work yourself up slowly, do coulees and Lethbridge or something like that, and work your way up slowly.
And then, I mean, maybe when he was doing the research for Waterton, maybe he didn't do Blackstone Creek, I don't know. Or maybe he's just going by, like I had never known about the falls along Blackstone Creek, along Vimy.
Outside of Blackstone
because
Falls itself.
I did my research with the Parks Canada websites, and they didn't say that. And so it's maybe he did the research that way. But and that's how I used to do all of my research. I'd look at blogs. People would write really good blogs. And I try to write really good blogs now too, because that's what I was finding in the past, that aside from the Parks Canada stuff, it was people who were doing it totally not for profit, just for their own interest and try to help other people. And so that's what I try to do too now. So, because that's how I used to look things up in the past. And anyway, I'm going to mention that one thing that I found frustrating about this book a little bit was that he'll have certain hikes like Crypt Lake. Crypt Lake's one hike. Most people will take the shuttle across. It doesn't cost that much. I never remember what the cost is because it's worth it. And I mean, recently we did the Carthew Alderson shuttle, and that one's you can drive your whole party up to Cameron Lake, drive back down, and take just one person take the shuttle up, and that's $20. So it's so cheap to do Carthew Alderson. So and the same with Crypt Lake. Anyway, with Crypt Lake, I noticed in the book he had
for the boat,
individual.
It might be $30 or something.
I don't know what it is.
It's not 20.
I have no idea. It's more, but he has the specific falls in Crypt Lake listed, and he gives the time and distance it takes for the falls, and that's kind
for
of
each
misleading.
Yeah, falls.
Because you're gonna see all of the falls, so they should actually be in the same page, and it should say this much to this one, this much to this one, all total this much, time, distance, whatever, right? So James is now going to talk about the Vimy hike and then whatever for the rest of
so
the
yesterday
time.
I was
because he thought of something too.
it was just Cascades, but I'd forgotten for the other times I'm quite tired and fatigued from the one chemo that I take. And oftentimes it'll take me, I say, it takes me until 6 o'clock to wake up p.m. And sometimes that's the next day. It's not really frustrating, consider the alternative. The alternative for me is death. Anyway, I just glitched. There's this one area where the main creek coming down by the Vimy Peak Trail is joined by another creek, and they're both at that point in time reasonably impressive creeks. And just before they meet, there's a falls, the most impressive falls on that creek, for example. But there's one pretty well as impressive on the adjoining creek, the creek that's adjoining the main creek. And they're both reasonably impressive falls. And what's really impressive is they're right next to each other. You can see them both at the same time. They're not like one of these kind of like chain falls or something like that, or step type of falls. Here's one here, and here's another one here, and you can kind of sit up on a little, it's not quite a promontory, but an overlook, and you can see the one falls over here, and one falls over here. You can hear them too. It's quite a peaceful little sit down that you can have and watch this stuff. So Pauline was right. I think it's better than, for example, Hamilton Falls, which is mentioned for Yoho here. Hamilton Falls is, we visited it there, kind of like in tourist season, and it was, from what I could tell, bone dry. It's kind of a disappointment. Now, it doesn't take, it's not a long walk. What is it, 700 meters, they're saying, one way. It seemed a lot longer, but that's because we'd gone north of Emerald Lake before then, well north of it, up onto some glacial deposits. So we were tired, but it was disappointing to make it that far and see nothing. I got no guarantee, of course, that the two waterfalls within sight of each other, easy sight of each other, view on Vimy Ridge are running year round. And the other thing is, you got to walk quite a ways to get there. It's not 700 meters. It's more like 10 kilometers, something like that, or more. 10 kilometers. Yeah, I'd say, or more. So I did want to mention that Blackiston Creek, there are little falls on there. It's more than cascades. It's not like rapids or stuff like that. So I'm not talking about the falls where they've got the two observation platforms. I'm talking about farther up the trail, and I think it would be maybe 6 extra falls, and you can see them reasonably well from the pathway. I can hear things that sound like every so occasionally the pathway wanders away from the creek, and sometimes when it does, you can hear what sound like falls out of sight. I don't recommend going off-road to see whether there are falls there, but it's an amazing little creek or falls. You go over on the other side of the mountain there, Mount Bowerman, to the north, and Bowerman Creek is not nearly as impressive. I'm not sure exactly why. Maybe it's because it's less robust and so on and so forth. I'm not sure why, but it has its own charms. You go on the trail between Twin Lakes campsite and snowshoe campsite, and you get an amazing variety of flowers along that creek up there. So on and so forth. Oh, that's this book. It comes highly recommended. You get it out of the library. You're going to run across a demand for it at the library, so you might want to buy it. I think Pauline said it's list price $25. So it's it might be well worth it if you're at all interested in hiking the southern Rockies. And I don't think Yoho is exactly in the Rockies, but it's like one range over. And well, parts of the Rockies. Yeah, it basically is a Rocky Mountain Park. It's a good. So I'm looking forward to Volume 2. I suspect it's for the Northern Rockies, so it would have Jasper for sure, Mount Robson. I think it's a provincial park in BC. It would probably have Kakwa Wilderness it would probably have the stuff around Tumbler Ridge. Grand
Or
Cache,
he might be
Tumbler
going the
Ridge.
other way. He might be going west, and it might have the western BC Rockies rather than the eastern BC. And
Well,
Alberta.
strictly speaking, the Rocky Mountains are the thing along the
Oh yeah, you explained that to me before. That the others are called a different name.
They'll have all sorts of things. Like there's the Selkirks. There's
I just
the-
always thought of them as just
Yeah,
Rocky Mountains.
That's the way I did until I started looking
Oh.
at it more seriously than I did as a kid on
Yeah.
maps. And so you got the Coast Range, you've got the
Because you were explaining that to me when we went up to
near
the
Hudson.
Hart Springs
Yes.
and beyond, I guess, the Signpost Village and
Yeah,
stuff.
well,
So,
we went all the way up
Yukon.
into the Yukon,
but
but we
you were
went
explaining
over a
that,
pass, and that pass we were going over the Rocky Mountains. So that I'd like to. I don't know if there are any falls in that little park there.
Well, there were.
Robinson.
We didn't go all the way to that hiking. On that one hiking trail, the one you wanted to go to that was supposed to be really good for flowers, but we were seeing it in the fall, so it wasn't good at that time, right? But one day we will.
I
See
sure
it.
hope so.
Yeah. That one has waterfalls
Well, there
later
you go.
on in the
It's kind
on
of
the
like
trail.
a cultivated
Yeah.
in a different sense of the word. Civilized, not really. It's very lonesome up there, but it's a neat little park, I gotta say. So I hope they have at least one falls from there, and stuff like that. It's from what I can tell, the Rocky Mountains. So it extends way up there, north the Rocky Mountains, northern BC. Excuse me. So we probably should head out.
Get going. Okay.
So we're signing off here. Comes recommended.
Oh boy, we've got that white line.